Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the CloudHealth Roundtable. We're going to be trying to do a couple of these throughout the year, but this is our first one of 2026. Today, we are talking about the State of FinOps 2026 report released last week. So thank you for joining in a week to help us dissect the State of FinOps report from the FinOps Foundation. With us today, Cathal Cleary. He is our product leader. He is a governing board member at FinOps Foundation. Sanjna Srivatsa, she is a data scientist, product manager, and focus contributor with the FinOps Foundation. Lucas Paratore, self-proclaimed FinOps nerd and product manager, along with technical advisory council member. So some great minds joining us today. As we get started, this is meant to be a roundtable discussion. So please participate. So we have chat enabled so anyone can chat with everybody. We have questions available so you can look and see who has asked what. You can comment on questions. You can upvote questions. Raise your hand. We are monitoring chat. So if someone wants to come off mute and ask a question during, please do. We have a couple of slides that are meant to be conversation starters. They're meant to be data that the FinOps Foundation has presented, but we're meant to discuss and share our thoughts jointly. So please come off mute. Please raise your hand and please contribute. We'll be mentioning this throughout the webinar. Cathal, before we get kicked off, any additional thoughts?
Yeah, again, good morning. Thanks, everybody. Good afternoon. If you're in another part of the world, we're here in the west coast of the US. Just like the slide says, I mean, this is really about you guys and what you plan to do with this data and what difference it makes to you and if we're surprises. So as TJ says, yeah, please come off mute and join in the conversation. I think that's really valuable. I think everybody wants to hear from everybody else, not necessarily just from us. So practitioners is really valuable, and we thank you for participating.
With that, so let's dive into some of the behind the data stuff. So right now, we have a couple just quick slides about the respondents, who responded, what side of the organization responded, where in the world they responded. So Cathal, I know you had some thoughts.
Yeah, I'll get it going. So I think, why do we start with this? Well, honestly, I think when we looked at the data, we thought there's really no surprises here. Like, this is a little bit boring. Nothing surprised us. AI kind of takes over the world. We've kind of that's a narrative that we're very used to and that we're hearing a lot. I don't know how true it is in everybody's day to day, but we did want to just look at the who's responding, and we thought that was a little interesting that the number of respondents went up by about 100, so 11% ish increase in respondents. Now, that isn't really in keeping with the growth of the community and the growth of FinOps itself. It's quite a bit lower, I would say. It's hard to get people to respond, right? We know that. But like for less than 1,000 respondents at a community this big, it's a little disappointing. And I think we in the governing board, certainly for me, I think we need to think of ways of how we can get more respondents to this survey and see how it can be adjusted to get more people to pitch in. But from a who responded, I mean, Europe and EMEA took over the mantle of leaders from North America. I think last year's EMEA number was only 26%, so this has grown from 26 to 35. Last year, North America was 42%. That's down to 34%. So certainly EMEA is beginning to overtake North America in response to this survey. Not necessarily again an indication of the size of the community or where people are coming from. Just the people who took the time to respond. EMEA is definitely in front praise. Asia also pipped South and Central America, so Asia's ahead of that now. South and Central America was 15% last year, so they held steady. But Asia definitely took some of that share from North America as well. They went from 10% to 15%. So shout out to everybody who's not in North America. Good job on responding, and thank you. We love you guys.
Lucas, Sanjna, any other thoughts on regions responding? I think it's pretty straightforward.
I think you got it all.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's keep going. So more behind the data stuff. The enterprises that responded, it seems like we have a great group of large enterprises that responded, and I know we have, Cathal, you have some big thoughts on our demographic of respondents.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the responses are overweight influenced by the large enterprise, and consider the size here, right? Large enterprise, 10,000 or more employees. That is pretty big, right? So I think all the data you kind of need to put that lens on and say, okay, well, how much is this data influenced by those super large companies? Take for example GPUs, like people managing GPUs. Are enterprises managing GPUs? Are SMBs managing GPUs? Probably not on the SMB side. Enterprise maybe, particularly maybe if they're just renting GPUs from the cloud. But I think that the answers to questions like that are definitely answered, but definitely influenced by the fact that the respondents here are by and large these large enterprises with more than 10,000 employees.
Agreed. Lucas, is that from a tech perspective, is that kind of what we are seeing as well?
Yeah, we're pretty on the tack. We see a majority of large enterprises also on the tack, so that's pretty reflective of kind of the activity in the FinOps Foundation that we see. Sanjna, any thoughts?
I do want to say that they are so different, right? Like every enterprise, depending on their size, just behaves so differently. So I do think that there might have been some overshadowing of just based on the participation, might have been some overshadowing of patterns. But they are fundamentally different in the way they work. Nathan?
And hey, Nathan raised his hand. Nathan, you're off mute.
Hey, TJ, thanks. Yeah, I attended the call the other day, and it's definitely expanded beyond when I started in FinOps. It was really just about cloud cost and maybe SaaS costs, but now, AI and licensing and of course data center cost was there. So the teams aren't growing, it doesn't seem, being on the bench myself. But how are folks prioritizing what to tackle as the mandate is continuing to expand? You might have had some customer conversations to answer that question.
Yeah, I think that'll probably, we'll talk a little bit more about expanding scopes in a few slides, but where kind of going back to the FinOps Foundation, the hot topic right now is leadership. That's really where I see it's starting with, is what are the big leadership mandates? Where do they see the big levers to pull? Is this a SaaS opportunity? Is this we are migrating applications? And so start thinking about what it looks like to have to support both data center and public cloud. I don't know, Sanjna, Cathal, you have any thoughts?
Maybe TJ, you want to move us to the next slide, and that kind of breaks down a little bit by these different demographics.
Yeah, great call.
And yeah, Nathan, I think that's a super question. Like how if FinOps teams are asked to be doing all these extra things, and how are they deciding what to do because time is limited? But the one thing that came up here is AI for FinOps. I think it was like number 3 for large enterprise in future. And like 2 for SMB, which is, it's surprising it didn't come up in enterprise at all. But the way I see it is that people in the industry are looking to AI to make their jobs easier, or at least to make their jobs more efficient. Take for example, we deal a lot with our partners, with our MSPs, and our partners do a lot of great work to help the SMB sector, their customers, to manage and optimize their FinOps. But our partners are looking for ways to do more with less. Like they are under a super amount of pressure from a margin perspective. There's changes in the industry. There's changes in how AWS are compensating them for their work. So our partners really need to find ways to be more efficient. And honestly, I think like everybody else, they're looking to AI to do that for them. Like how can I have AI be my co-pilot for FinOps?
Yeah, Nathan, any thoughts? I think we're going to dive into this slide and some of the expanding of scopes and stuff like that in some of our other conversation starting slides. But yeah, I mean, any other thoughts?
If I come up with something else, I'll raise my hand.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, a question to the group. Like, I mean, what do you guys think about AI for FinOps? Is this something you're investigating? Is it something you're using? I know we had our initial foray using the Intelligent Assist, which is a little bit of help, and we have more plans this year. But like, what is everybody doing using AI at the moment? Any thoughts? do raise your hand, we'll take off mute.
Yeah, raise your hand, use chat, use Q&A. Otherwise,
Or on the flip side, maybe is AI for FinOps more important to you? Because right here, that was one of the potentially the things I was surprised for, is across all three, FinOps for AI was the higher priority. People feel similar with that?
So as you kind of pluck up the courage to raise your hand or come off mute, what we've actually seen this year in a lot of our customers that we've spoken to is that they don't necessarily see the whole issue of spending on AI as a problem yet. And I think that this slide kind of reflects that, right? Everybody's saying it's a future priority. We think this is going to be a problem in 6 months' time, but it's not a problem yet. And actually, a few of them did come to us and say, but you know what? I definitely need a good AI system to help me manage my FinOps in the meantime. So I want you guys to prioritize that. I want you to do AI for FinOps first. Now, so thinking about these things as a future concern, and again, this is kind of crystal ball stuff. Like everybody seems to be worried about the cost of AI, and I think that's reasonable, right? Because we don't necessarily have a good handle on that yet. We don't necessarily understand yet whether the cost of AI is going to be a huge deal in 6 months or not. But again, like either people don't know they have the problem or they're not worried about the problem. I don't know which is the answer, but certainly currently AI spending does not seem to be one of the top concerns for any of these segments.
I really like that the organizational priorities reflects reality, right? Like day to day, what is it that FinOps practitioners care about? It is the same waste reduction, making sure we're clean, optimizations done, allocations done. But since I'm sure everyone's manager is kind of asking them to say, hey, what is this whole AI stuff? Can we get in on it? And that's why people are kind of investigating on it. Unless you have significant costs in AI, let's be honest, it's not something that you will spend your everyday on. It is something that you want to dabble in, kind of like what Focus was 2 years ago, right? Like it was the big new thing everyone wants in, but no one really knows how or why it's valuable to you. And I feel like that's kind of the hype cycle we might be in. So everyone kind of expects that we will make this a top priority in the future, but today our bread and butter seems to be allocation and forecasting and good old optimization and idle
waste reduction, top of all three, right? I mean, it's still a thing.
Great.
Super interesting question there from can I call you Tiny, because that's what your name says. Tiny Tolkien. You guys are using MCPs. If you want to talk a little bit more about that, please do raise your hand. I'd love to hear about that. But is AI for FinOps requires a certain level of maturity in your process? And I just wonder, maybe Johnny followed up there with a comment about automation and AI for automation. Is AI mature enough yet to trust it to go do like destructive things to your infrastructure, to have it delete? Thanks for clarifying your name. Do destructive things within your infrastructure, potentially break some things. Maybe you're going to do it in a lower environment. Maybe you're going to do it in a test dev to start with. But our experience with automation over the years has been that we have introduced various ways to do those destructive things in the infrastructure, or even make automated RI and SP purchases where you spend money on your behalf. And adoption has been pretty low. And I think that probably is that trust problem, right? Do we trust the system to do those things on your behalf? Now, the question is, as AI booms and blooms and grows and becomes more and more clever, will that trust build to the extent where you will actually allow AI agents to go do things in your environment? Open question to the group.
Well, Doug actually asked, so in chat, a great question. That exact question is AI stable enough to make some of those factual decisions? Sanjna, as our data scientist, what do you think?
The way I interpreted Johnny's question was actually that there's maturity required within. So the practice should be mature enough to handle automation. I completely agree with him with that thought process, that if you have all the guardrails and governance and all of that in place, you actually can allow for some automation if it's AI or otherwise. I think that personally, I think AI is absolutely there where you would, if you have all the guardrails and governance and processes in place, you would allow for some automation with AI. I don't see why not. Like idle waste reduction and stuff like that. That's absolutely something that I would personally think that we are ready for AI to do. RI management maybe something, maybe not, because that's far more incriminating on your bank balance. But idle waste, idle stuff, waste reduction, possibly even workload optimization with the human in the loop, I would absolutely think we are there.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, isn't it? We still have the human in the loop, so it's not complete trust; it's trust but verify.
100%.
And I think there was a comment there from NF, using AI with structured SOPs as a means to add information to decision making. So exactly, the AI is not making the decision; it's providing decision support so that decision can be made quicker. 100%. So I think that there's a couple more questions there, but I think we're going to get to some of this in the later slides. Just to kind of finish off on this one, again, no real surprises. I think it's interesting to see everybody is still prioritizing workload optimization, waste reduction, and I think this reflects that comment that the AI initiatives need to be self-funding. So it looks like people are still pushing hard on optimization and waste reduction to self-fund the AI initiatives. FinOps is showing its value to the organization by providing that budget relief so that we can actually invest in these AI areas.
That is so interesting that you said that, Nathan. If I can jump in, team. It's so interesting that you said that we're looking at AI as this completely separate entity, right? We would never do that. We would never kind of take optimization money and fund it somewhere else if it was just a compute spend or just something else, right? This is not how the cycle works. But we're treating AI as the special category of we'll do something and maybe the result will pay off by many folds, almost like gambling, right? I feel like a lot of us are going through the cycle where we are not starting with a use case. Unless we start with a use case to say, this is what we want to solve, and you know exactly what we're building, and that's why we will use AI. You'd stop looking at it as this money you're spending into this black box, but money you're strategically spending into something you exactly want to achieve. And I think a lot of us enterprises are going through that cycle right now. It happens very often with hypes. But yes, I feel kind of it's a little interesting to observe that we're treating AI as this completely separate thing when all that it is, it's just another service that CSPs provide. It's nothing different, right? Why would it be?
Agreed. So some great chat. Keep it up, guys. Thank you for being engaged. Diving into a little bit about the numbers that we saw at kind of State of FinOps and what are the areas of technology spend that FinOps teams manage today and in the next 12 months. So this is one that State of FinOps releases every year, year over year change of what FinOps teams are doing. Would love to hear if your teams are doing some of this, but Lucas, I know you have some thoughts on this.
A little passionately surprised by some of the data here. So especially, I mean, from the bottom up, the 28% beginning to include labor costs. I was really surprised by that. Maybe it's an outcome of FinOps teams moving under CIO, CTO, so now they have more access to labor data for the engineering organization. But that one it didn't really make too much sense to me. I'd be interested if there are other people here that have been thinking about how they're going to take labor data to do things like calculate unit economics, understand profit margin, or another use case. Anybody here using labor in their calculations? Yep, moving to TBM. We're definitely seeing that combination, those personas combining ITFM, TBM, FinOps.
I mean, Lucas, that might be. Oh, Eric, raising your hand. I'll grab you. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so I would love to do labor costs, but I can't. Labor costs need to be captured using a project accounting kind of system, and we don't have that in place in the government organization that I'm associated with. But we've talked about that. For example, RDS is purported to lower labor costs for system level DBAs. RDS costs 1.8 times the corresponding EC2, and I'm not convinced that it's saving that much labor, but I can't prove it right now.
That's a really cool perspective. I hadn't thought about that one, which is like, well, if you're telling me that I can get something done quicker, faster than I can with people, well, prove it. Well, how do I prove it if I don't know how much the people cost? I mean, that's super interesting, Eric. Yeah.
It's efficiency. You know, it's not total cost of ownership, but this is like true efficiency of engineering resourcing. Super interesting.
Does anyone else think it's surprising that AI, while AI might be the same as licensing or SaaS, depending on how you're using AI in your company or data center too, does anyone find it interesting that it is standing as its own pillar? Because most of us consume AI basically in any of these other formats that are also listed on this page. But it is standing on its own with a really huge number behind it. Do we think it's interesting? And maybe a question to the group is, do we agree with this? Do we also consume AI separately? Are we tracking those costs separately? Or are we consuming them as a part of SaaS license or public cloud cross?
That's the real question, Sanjna. Like, how is AI not part of SaaS? How is AI not part of licensing, right? But AI is also public cloud, and obviously this is the areas outside of public cloud. But AI is public cloud, and there was a bit of debate in the organization, in the FinOps organization too, about, is AI not just a cross-cutting concern, or is it a thing on its own? It looks like the number was so big this year that they decided to make it a thing on its own. But last year, this didn't appear on the data that they shared, even though there's like a 35% year-over-year change. When I looked at last year's same group of numbers, it was just SaaS licensing, private cloud, and data center.
It's hard to pay attention and also see all the interesting things being said in the chat.
Yeah.
And really interesting what you're talking about, especially like I don't know if you'd ever be willing to come off mute, and just it'd be really interesting to hear how you're able to have access to that, who can see that data, like what that is like. But if you're in a place where the audio is not possible, I totally understand.
Eric is here again. Eric, keep going.
I understand.
So there's two things. There's AI as a technology, as a service offering, and then there's AI as a piece of an application. So what we're doing is we have certain applications where we're using AI to implement the application. And for that, we're tracking the application cost, which includes an AI component. So we look at it both ways, at the application level and at the service level. Right now, the actual AI spending within the applications that are using it is pretty small. But I'm certainly able to see it, and I highlighted it to the app owner. I'm not sure if that's answering your question.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is, if it's in the application, correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying if it's in the application, it's kind of just part of the overall application cost and it's considered as public cloud. But if it's actually, I'm using Copilot, or I'm using Gemini, or I'm using Cursor, then that's a separate cost. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, so we're not permitted to use those right now because of privacy concerns.
Okay.
So anything that people are doing is on their own personal accounts and off to the side. But we're using AI for some selected applications, and then AI as a component. And there are various service pieces of it that I have coded as AI. Just like we have a storage category and a compute category and a networking category, AI is one more.
Got it. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I like that thought.
One thing that is not on this slide, Lucas and Cathal, do we want to talk about one of the announcements that was made on the State of FinOps call about the mission statement change?
Yeah. Okay. So governing board plus TAC. I'll let Lucas talk to TAC, but governing board for certain sort of decides what the mission of the FinOps Foundation is. The mission previously had said, managing the value of cloud and technology, and I think we just felt that, well, cloud is technology, and why are we calling both that? Why is cloud special? Like the purview of the FinOps persona is now much wider than cloud. We've got all these things that you see on the slide here. So why are we calling out cloud special? And it was a little bit of back and forth, honestly. And people felt passionately that FinOps had grown up in the cloud. The cloud was kind of the nursery for FinOps. So why are we dropping our heritage like that? But ultimately, we thought, look, the mission statement absolutely needs to be clear and simple. And FinOps is in now and into the future going to be managing the value of technology. So we changed the mission statement. We took cloud out, and we just said technology is the value we're managing. That's where we're at.
The Technical Advisory Council, we have not yet made that change. We still refer to it as cloud and technology, but TBD, we will probably be moving in that direction as well. But we also feel the same tie and affinity to the word cloud.
Yeah,
so, has not changed yet, but probably will.
Yeah, the difference here is the mission of the FinOps Foundation versus the definition of FinOps. And I think, Lucas, that's what the TAC is deciding on. What's the definition of FinOps, and should that change?
Exactly.
Yeah.
At Focus as a contributor, we are constantly being pushed towards also considering SaaS use cases when we write our specs, which is very interesting. We were most recently handling commitment management, and the way we define commitment as a cloud provider is very different than a SaaS provider. And so now we're actively seeing that our scopes are expanding, and we have to consider how the others do things as well.
Awesome. Yeah, let's move forward, but please keep engaged. Thank you everyone for commenting. How have priorities changed? So we looked at this and we had a couple notes on the side. Biggest being staffing year over year is still the bottom of this chart. Same last year. Multi investments are starting to show up as a priority. Unit economics still seems like it's a little low, but then we also see a big push into from the FinOps Foundation in leadership and executive integration or influence, but that also seems low. Cathal, you had some other thoughts, I think, as well, but those were the ones that when we were talking stood out to us for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to start at the bottom because I think the top, there's no surprises really at the top, but staffing and acquiring talent has been at the bottom for the last 2 years. And I was wondering, why is that? I mean, do people, and again, love to hear from you guys on the call, do people feel like their teams are fully staffed, or do they feel like, you know what, there's so much training out there for FinOps these days, we don't really have a talent problem anymore, people can get sufficient training? Or do people feel like, I don't have budget to hire people, and I have all this AI cost coming in that I need to find money for, so I'm really going to lean on AI to help me do more with less, kind of the point from earlier. Why is staffing and talent such a low concern?
So hiring freeze, I believe it, but I also look in the FinOps Foundation jobs board, and February 12th had quite a few jobs posted, job links for people with FinOps. So it does appear there are some people that are hiring. Are people running into these as dead-end opportunities?
They need to use the budget to remove entry skills.
Have you seen any companies mandating that we use AI where we can and not hire any more people? Is that a thing at all?
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
So before you come to me with a rec, prove to me that AI can't do this job. Is kind of that where we're at? If that's a VP or a GM speaking. I kind of feel like even in recent, quarterly reviews. So I don't know why I'm blanking on the name. Market announcements, earnings announcements. That for earnings for public companies, it's been cool to talk so much about what you're doing with AI and how much or how less you're hiring because of AI. I mean, it almost seems like if you say that in your earnings review, you'll probably get a share price bump, which is a little unfortunate.
I believe it, right? Like I see how we might do that too. We might hire less engineering. We might have more generalists now, people who can do multiple things. I see that being the world a couple of years from now for sure.
Tiny, that's a really interesting one. Task spreading to DevOps. I love that, right? So you're kind of FinOps was doing a little bit of the work of DevOps, but now you're pushing back and saying, hey, we need to shift left, guys. Well, guess who's on our left? You are.
Very interesting.
Yeah, love that. What else in this was interesting? The multi-year investment planning appears for the first time, but I don't know why this is here for the first time. I mean, almost everybody, I would say, on this call has a multi-year agreement with somebody, some sort of a supplier, be it a cloud supplier or a SaaS supplier. And I've gone through this myself, having run FinOps at VMware for a long time. Every time, and those 3 years roll around really, really quickly, and you're looking back thinking, "Ooh, what do I need to commit to this time? How am I going to get the best price this time?" I don't know if it's an indication, maybe a change of the demographic or a change in the mindset of FinOps thinking about these multi-year agreements, or just maturity, maybe. But as long as multi-year agreements have been around with vendors, I think this has been a concern.
Lucas, I know you've been pretty passionate about the leadership and executive influence and tie-in and stuff like that as well. But
yeah, I mean, I think we have some firsthand experience for us at CloudHealth. I mean, we have had a big shift in terms of focus on optimization and efficiency at a leadership level, and that has permeated into everything from DevOps to engineering to product management. How do we think about things like backfill data requirements to report frequency generation? Like these are all types of things that these mandates and thinking about efficiency have pushed into other parts of the organization, and that's really been successful. It's hard to say no to your boss. My boss is on the line, so I'm maybe paid to say that, but it's hard to say no when your boss is telling you to do something.
Oh, I'm not sure about that, Lucas. You do a good job at it sometimes.
I'll say I was told I'm not allowed to start this with a joke, and you started with a joke, so just saying.
I see some really interesting conversation happening in the chat. We're talking about how we're categorizing services, and 5 years ago, everything was ML, right? Like, what do we use for the most basic linear regression? ML. Nothing was statistics, nothing was below linear, everything was ML, and now everything is AI. So I see how it makes sense for a lot of these things during the transitionary period when we move between ML and AI for service category to kind of consider more ML services as well.
I think even last year on this particular slide, it was called AI ML spending, right? Or something like that. It wasn't FinOps for AI.
ML is the most fun thing. Everyone wanted to talk about it. Even if you did something on Excel, we called it ML.
How the trends change.
So
I think
since
one thing that's interesting too to call out here that stayed consistent is the implementing a new FinOps tool. So maybe a sign of what the market is that whether that's a spot solution or not, organizations continue to invest in FinOps tools at a pretty much the same rate they have been the last few years.
Mm-hmm. Are we seeing, and this is Lucas and Sanjna, do you think we're seeing more build your own at this stage, or are we seeing more people actually turn to tool vendors like ourselves?
I think it's there's quite a few characteristics of a company that drive them one versus the other. I I think we are seeing some more build happening as cloud providers increase their free tools, but I also think that organizations as are becoming more complicated. And so as you take over multiple clouds, you have private cloud, you have SaaS, it's hard to lean on the investments as much that the cloud providers have made because they certainly have made some good progress. So as the world becomes more complicated, I think it goes kind of both ways.
Yeah.
Sanjna, any thoughts?
I've also seen build on the stuff that you buy, not just build and buy, but like build with the stuff that you buy. A lot of people are taking what we have and make it their own, or taking what CSP providers or focus providers provide, and then they make it their own. Seeing a lot of that too, and it's easier to build now with AI, right? Like, so everyone can be a builder now. So I'm seeing some of that as well.
I mean, that's been the MSP model since the beginning is how do you build upon, they don't just go and take a CloudHealth or whatever and say, this is, you're getting 100% of this platform. They sell an additional service on top of that. So it's how do you build upon these tools to provide a better product?
100%.
The unit economics, even the language for unit economics changed, right? Last year it was getting to unit economics. This year it's defining unit economics. I don't know the difference, honestly, or why those terms changed. And unit economics, and I think some of these indicators to say it moved up and moved down, I think are a little inaccurate at the moment. I'm sure that the foundation is working to refine them. Let's see. Getting to unit economics was in place number 4 last year. So I think it has actually dropped 3, 4, 5, 6. It's actually in 7 this year. So it's dropped 3. Now I know we are as a SaaS product that has to measure our revenue carefully. We do certainly look at unit economics for CloudHealth, and we look at for every dollar that we manage, how much does it cost us to manage that dollar? So we're very everything we do revolves around that unit economic measure, whether, as Lucas mentioned earlier, if we're running a recollection for somebody where a collection failed, or there was a change in the config and we have to rerun and we have to backfill, we certainly are able to pinpoint the cost of that, and we know exactly how much it will cost for that to happen. Obviously, that's not something we have to pass on, but it's something that we do have to have in mind. There's a finite cost every time we have to rerun some of our pipeline or some of our jobs. There's a finite cost that we have to be aware of, and we have to measure and make sure we're allowing for.
I also thought saying that sorry, TJ?
No. I was going to move forward, but if you have another comment, please.
I was just going to say how when we have our prioritization product feature meetings, if I could productize one thing that I know is the most impactful thing is executive influence. If there was any way to productize that or make that into a feature, we've firsthand seen how important it could be. It is by far the single most impactful thing on someone's cost. If your manager or if your CEO says you have to do something, you will go do it, and it will just happen. Things that you never thought, if you had to cut 50% of your cost, you're just like, are you crazy? But if a FinOps practitioner says that today, I would definitely laugh at him. But then if your CEO says you have to do it, we kind of see that happen. And so we kind of have this running joke. If there was any way for us to productize this kind of executive influence, we absolutely would. And that would be the best thing for a practice.
I'm going to jump forward a slide because I think Eric has a great question, Sanjna, in chat about AI and service categories, but I think we've always talked about a ton about AI. It represented a lot of what the FinOps Foundation represented during the state of FinOps. Obviously, a bunch of graphs and charts that they had, but I think Eric has a great question around categorization and identifying costs. So.
Yeah, I was just chatting with him as well. And that question comes up all the time, right? It's by far the most, if you speak to Sean, who's our chairperson, he will say it is by far the most often, that's the question he gets asked is, how do I know what the mapping is across all 3 clouds and all these levels of categorization we have? Focus currently recommends a 3-level model where you probably have a compute, then you have virtual machines, and then you have EC2. CloudHealth provides one layer deeper where we say EC2 data transfer. And so like these are the levels that you would see. On average, you would have a 3 or 4 level categorization. And like you said, Eric, it's very interesting, and it is very, very fair that you want to have not a static categorization, right? Even the categorizations that you do see provided by CSPs or any focus spec will be outdated, definitely, because there's new services being rolled out every day. I think across all 3 clouds, we have about 595, when the last time I did the math, services being provided. Not a small number. I'm sure my number is already outdated from the time I calculated it till now. That's just how fast of a pace we move. It's very hard to make sure that we have these categorizations going. By far the hardest problem that Focus has to solve. But interesting to see that people are also doing it on their end, which makes sense, right? Like look to Focus for a starting point. And I think we have a word for this. CloudHealth calls it focus forward. Everything we build is focus forward, where we take what's best for all of our customer base, but we don't strictly follow or look for compliance. But I think the Focus community calls it Fokish, where everyone builds something Fokish. Nothing is ever 100% compliant, and they're completely okay with it. I think that's the goal. As long as you can tell where the gaps are, you're completely fine being Fokish.
Yeah, why don't I jump ahead to the where's Focus going, and then maybe we can go back to AI. We've talked a lot about AI, but you've hit on Focus a good amount. Is there, so chat and everyone in attendance, has there been a push in your organization towards getting more Focus compliant or folk-ish? Is that what Sanjna, is that what the term is?
I say focus forward because that's what we use in CloudHealth, but sure, Fokish. And you're right, TJ, we can go back to AI. I just kind of went with the flow with Focus.
No, I think Focus is a good one
good.
I think TJ's right. We spent a lot of time on AI, so why don't we talk about Focus a little bit more?
Yeah, in the working group, are you seeing, is there a lot of asks around getting Focus forward or Focus compliant data into data center? I know there's one side that of all the vendors that F2 is FinOps Foundation is trying to push to get to Focus data, but is that a big focus on Focus in the working group?
I think we've reached a point where we have a lot of voices. So the spec is molded by the people in it, right? Like the contributors. If it's fair or not is a separate question. We try to make sure we consider everyone's opinion, but we can't without those people actively there. For example, just the definition of effective cost took us, I think, 25 hours plus just to discuss it. So we this is a very active, everything takes work, everything takes time, everyone's voice is heard kind of a community. We don't have nearly enough voices of companies that use data center and private cloud very actively. So I feel right now we have a lot of SaaS voices. So I think that's showing in the spec. Public cloud obviously is something we have, some licensing voices as well. But I think that I know we need to support data center costs, and we do actively try to consider everything. But since we don't have someone telling us all the constraints and all the scenarios, I don't know if we do the best job that we can. I guess we have to, but we just don't know how we do it at this point. There's something that has to happen in the future.
About 10-15 minutes left. Wanna some great conversations, some great chats. I want to make sure that we get to everyone. Please keep going in chat, ask any questions you want, but if anyone has anything else that stood out from the state of FinOps, please raise your hand, please come off mute or post in chat. Would love to hear about it. We hit on some of the big ones, but would love to hear more from the few.
I think the interesting one here is like, what are people going to do now? Right? You've seen the data.
Agreed.
Are you making any changes, or is it just like, yeah, we kind of expected all this, no problem. Everything's going to stay as is, and our plans are going to stay as is. I mean, obviously, the goal of a survey is to influence, maybe your actions in future, and to inform you maybe a little bit about what the future holds. So has anybody got any plans to make big changes based on this data?
Eric, you're still able to talk and come off mute, so I'll call on people. I'm not above that. Eric, do you have thoughts? Like, is that something that is the state of FinOps and the data that was shared last week and some of the stuff we talked about today, is that going to influence your plans for 2026 and beyond in any capacity?
I can't comment about beyond, but for 2026, probably not. That's a practical matter.
Yep, makes sense. So I think there's a little bit of, well, the plans are the plans. I can't change that quickly, but maybe for 2027, this might influence me. So it's a little bit of it needs to sort of shape the longer term future. I totally get that. I wonder, like, again, open question, like if either there were no surprises in this data, or maybe the cohort that answered weren't the right cohort for you, or you don't have enough confidence in the data, whatever it might be. Is there another data set that you look at that makes more sense for your planning? And it could be internal, like, my own company. That's a perfectly reasonable answer.
By the way, the survey is great for people like us, right? Like, who build for the community. It's really interesting to know what the community's voice is. We obviously care the most about our customers' voice, but like we compare notes to see how close what our customers are saying is to what the community is saying. So it's been very interesting for us.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I started by saying it was a little boring. That's actually a good thing. I'm glad that we didn't have any huge surprises. It means that we're doing our jobs. So. Yeah, Johnny's agreeing. Influence forward. 3 buckets full for 26. I hear that. Yeah, we're already almost in March, which is kind of scary.
Very scary.
Yeah, how many people are tired of hearing of AI? I know we treat it lightheartedly, but it's a game changer. There's no doubt about that. I like that idea. AI timer. You should have maybe an AI timer jar, like you have a swear jar, right? Every time somebody mentions AI, you got to put $1 in the jar.
That's a good one. Yeah. Well, hey, as we're
talking about ML again. Make AI profitable. Yeah.
Yep. As we're kind of winding down, we have a couple minutes left, but want to encourage everyone, first and foremost, thank everyone for hopping on, for spending some time with us to help dive into the state of FinOps data. Secondly, continue the conversation. So we have a CloudHealth community page that is there for CloudHealth users with best practices, with our blogs, but also it is a forum. So if there are things that stick out to you as you are diving into the state of FinOps data a little more internally, would love to continue the conversation in our CloudHealth community and as peers and in FinOps practitioners in the wild. So please feel free to join us, become members, follow us there, as well as on LinkedIn and YouTube as we continue to post stuff. But
just a couple of quick comments. We purposely sort of avoided telling you guys anything about CloudHealth and what CloudHealth's doing in response to this data. I mean, we do roadmaps all the time. We talk to people all the time. So we didn't want to make this about CloudHealth as such. We want to make it more of a community discussion. But there is a blog out there that I wrote that kind of talks about this data in the survey and what we're doing and what we plan to do. So that is a blog in this community. And maybe TJ, maybe we could send a little bit of swag to the first person who posts who starts the thread in the community. So whoever starts the very first thread in the community, you definitely deserve some CloudHealth swag. So we're happy to do that.
We'll see what we can do. Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
Well, if there are no other comments or questions, thank you all. Like I said, you'll get a survey at the end of this as a thank you, but also as a hey, tell us a little bit more about your feelings on the state of FinOps. If you couldn't come off mute for whatever reason, join us in the community so we can dive in a little bit there. Appreciate everyone spending some time with us to jump in, and looking forward to the rest of 2026. Thanks, everyone. Hope to see
Thanks
you at
all.
FinOps X.